Airport janitor stole $4 million cartel cash and vanished. True crime documentary. April 11, 2021. Miami International Airport. The storm of the decade lashes the runways with fury. Rain hammers metal rooftops like war drums, lightning splits the horizon, and thunder rattles the glass walls of the control tower. Private jets glitter under the storm's strobe light, parked neatly in the VIP terminal, waiting for their wealthy passengers. But inside, amid all the noise and chaos, a man nobody ever noticed was preparing to vanish forever. Luis Herrera. 42 years old. A janitor. An immigrant from Honduras. A man so invisible that even security guards nodded at him without ever remembering his face. For 3 years, Luis cleaned these halls from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., pushing his mop cart past leather chairs and marble floors while the world's rich and powerful passed him by. On this stormy night, he wasn't just cleaning floors. He was about to steal $4 million in cartel cash and disappear into thin air, leaving behind one of the boldest airport thefts in U.S. history. The man nobody saw. Luis Herrera's entire life had been training for invisibility. Born in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, his hands were calloused from decades of hard labor. Construction in Houston. Dishwashing in New Orleans. Factory lines in Memphis. Always jobs that paid just enough to keep him alive, never enough to lift him out of poverty. Divorced. 2 kids back home. Maria, a 16-year-old math prodigy dreaming of becoming an engineer, and Carlos, a 13-year-old boy obsessed with soccer. Luis wired them $800 a month, almost everything he earned. It wasn't much, but it kept their dreams alive. His apartment in Miami was a cockroach-infested studio with peeling paint and a broken AC. His car, a Honda Civic with nearly 200,000 miles, rattled like an old washing machine. He had $50 a week left after rent and bills. $50 to eat, survive, and maybe buy a second-hand shirt. Luis was poor, but he was patient. And the patience of the invisible is a dangerous thing. The other Miami. Most passengers saw Miami International as a chaotic hub of tourists, families, and endless TSA lines. But Luis worked in a different world, the VIP terminal. A private sanctuary for the ultra-rich, filled with marble floors, champagne glasses, and soundproof lounges. Celebrities, CEOs, athletes, and billionaires passed through every week. But Luis noticed something else: flights that didn't belong. Private jets arriving from Mexico at midnight. No families. No luggage. Just men in sharp suits with the unmistakable accents of Sinaloa, Guadalajara, and Tijuana. Cartel men. Always carrying nothing when they landed, but leaving with heavy duffel bags. And those bags weren't filled with clothes. Luis knew money when he saw it. One night, while emptying trash near Lounge 7, he glimpsed inside a half-open bag. Stacks of $100 bills rubber-banded into bricks. More cash than he had ever seen in his life. $500,000 at least, maybe more. That sight didn't just haunt him, it changed him. Because Luis began to ask himself a simple question: what if I took just one bag? Planning the impossible. Luis spent 6 months studying the operation. The flights always came Thursday through Sunday, between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. The guards rotated on schedule. One always slipped outside for a 10-minute smoke break. Cameras covered entrances and passengers, but not janitors. Nobody watched the janitors. His mop cart was the perfect cover. It could hold 2 40-pound duffel bags under piles of trash and bleach-soaked rags. The service elevator bypassed the public terminals and led straight to the employee garage. No cameras. No searches. No suspicions. All he had to do was push his cart, load his car, and drive away. If everything went right, Luis could walk out of Miami International with millions of dollars, and nobody would even realize until it was too late. The stakes. Luis wasn't stupid. He knew what stealing from a cartel meant. This wasn't like robbing a bank. Banks had alarms, insurance, and lawyers. Cartels had enforcers, machetes, and unmarked graves. If they caught him, he wouldn't go to prison. He'd vanish into the Everglades, bones never found. But for Luis, the math was brutal and undeniable. At $12 an hour, it would take him 33 years to earn what sat inside a single duffel bag. 33 years of mopping floors. 33 years of being invisible. Or one night of risk that could change his children's lives forever. That was the choice Luis made on April 11, 2021. The night a janitor became the man who stole from a cartel and vanished without a trace. The heist night. The storm builds. April 11, 2021. By 10 p.m., Miami was drowning. The thunderstorm that weather stations had warned about all week rolled in from the Everglades like a wall of rage. Wind whipped palm trees sideways. Lightning struck so close it rattled windows in downtown condos. The news anchors were already calling it the worst storm in years. For Luis Herrera, it was the perfect cover. Storms distracted security. Storms blurred cameras. Storms gave him chaos, and invisibility thrived in chaos. He clocked in early that night. 10:45 p.m. sharp uniform. Calm expression. Mop in hand. Nobody suspected a thing. To his co-workers, Luis was just another tired janitor walking into another graveyard shift. But in his mind, he wasn't starting work. He was beginning a countdown. The arrival. 11:52 p.m. Through sheets of rain, the Gulfstream G650 descended, its lights cutting through the storm. Luis watched from a service corridor window as it touched down. Graceful. Silent. Deadly. That jet wasn't carrying tourists. It was carrying criminals. 3 men stepped off. Expensive suits, polished shoes, and the kind of swagger that didn't come from business school. It came from violence. Luis recognized them instantly. He had seen their faces before, always in the same lounge, always with the same duffel bags. VIP Lounge 7. That was where millions of dollars were about to sit, waiting for a pickup. And tonight, Luis would be the one to collect. The window of opportunity. Midnight struck. Security routines played out like clockwork. One guard began his perimeter patrol. The other lit a cigarette just outside the terminal doors, the same habit Luis had tracked for months. 10 minutes of nicotine. 10 minutes of opportunity. Luis's mop cart squeaked as he rolled it down the marble hallway. His heart hammered in his chest, but his pace never changed. He emptied a trash can here, wiped a smudge there, blending in perfectly. To the cameras, he was just another janitor doing his job. The lounge door was unlocked. As always, inside the lounge. VIP Lounge 7 was a world apart. Polished mahogany table. Leather chairs. The smell of cigar smoke and cologne. But what caught Luis's eye was the row of duffel bags lined neatly on the table. 4 bags. 2 zipped. 2 open. Each stuffed with stacks of $100 bills, banded tight, glowing under the chandelier light like bricks of green gold. $8 million. Sitting there like forgotten luggage. The 3 cartel men barely noticed Luis. They were too busy talking into phones, checking watches, and muttering about delayed flights. To them, he was invisible. Just the janitor. And invisibility was Luis's greatest weapon. The grab. With steady hands, Luis pushed his mop closer to the table. He wiped the surface casually, keeping his head down, his breathing slow. The discovery. 12:51 a.m. Only minutes after Luis clocked out, the 2 American businessmen walked into VIP Lounge 7. Suits pressed. Briefcases in hand. Calm, professional, the kind of calm that only comes from years of dealing with high-stakes crime. The cartel leader gestured at the table. But something was wrong. The bags didn't look the same. 2 missing. 2 remaining. The spacing uneven. 1 bag slightly slouched, like its insides had shifted. ¿Dónde están los otros? The Mexican boss demanded. Where are the others? The Americans froze. We were told 4 bags, one replied, confusion tightening his jaw. I see 2. Accusations in the storm. The room grew heavy with silence. Outside, thunder rolled like artillery fire. Inside, suspicion turned to poison. The cartel men accused the Americans of sending advance operatives to grab the bags early. The Americans, insulted, fired back. Maybe the cartel was playing games, using fake theft as leverage to cut the deal price. Both sides were wrong. But neither believed the other. Every criminal alliance is fragile. Built on money. Held by fear. Shattered by distrust. And in that stormy night in Miami, $4 million vanished into the hands of a janitor, and 2 global crime syndicates nearly went to war over it. Security alert. 1:30 a.m. The Mexicans filed a complaint with airport security. They couldn't exactly report cartel money laundering theft, so they crafted a story. Business documents and personal effects worth $50,000 had gone missing. James Morrison, the overnight supervisor, wasn't impressed. 28 years at Miami International. He'd seen everything from fake Rolex scams to suitcases full of parrots. To him, this was just another vague complaint from VIP clients who didn't want the police involved. But protocol demanded an investigation. So Morrison ordered a security review. Footage showed the Mexicans entering, the Americans arriving, the Americans leaving. Nothing unusual. No intruders. The only extra presence? Luis Herrera, the janitor. There he was on camera, mopping, emptying trash, walking his cart. Nothing suspicious. Nothing criminal. just routine background noise. The tapes confirmed his invisibility, and in doing so they erased suspicion. The investigation closed with a shrug, probably misplaced property. Case dismissed. The cartel's real investigation. But cartels don't shrug. They don't close cases. They punish. Within 48 hours, cartel enforcers landed in Miami. Men with no last names. Men who didn't file paperwork but left trails of blood. Their leader, El Martillo, the Hammer. A man feared from Sinaloa to Guatemala. Not because he shouted, but because he didn't. He was quiet, precise. And when he wanted answers, bones broke before words did. The first victim. Their first suspect, Miguel Santos, a veteran security supervisor. A man who had been at the airport for 20 years. Loyal, clean record, but unlucky enough to be on duty that night. He was taken from his home, driven to a warehouse in Hialeah, tortured for 18 hours. He died without giving them anything, because he had nothing to give. His body was left at a construction site. A message, the missing money would be found. The second victim. Next came Carmen Rodriguez, a grandmother, a cleaning supervisor who scheduled the janitors. She had known Luis for years, knew his habits, his silence, his reliability. They pushed her harder, longer. She gave them names, just details, and that was enough. For the first time, Luis Herrera's name rose above the noise. Invisible no longer. But by the time they came looking, he was already gone. Meanwhile, Luis disappears. While bodies were surfacing in Miami, Luis was driving south. Past Homestead. Past the neon lights of the strip malls. Into the darkness of US Highway 1. His Toyota Corolla rattled like it always had, but tonight, its trunk held $4 million. By sunrise he was in Key West, the southernmost tip of the continental United States. A place where people vanished into boats, ferries, and foreign waters. He checked into a motel under a fake name. Paid cash. Kept the blinds closed. And for the first time since lifting those bags, he allowed himself to whisper, "I did it." The FBI stumbles in. Days later, the FBI got a whisper about something strange at Miami International. A theft nobody wanted to officially report. A cartel nervous enough to move violently, but quiet enough to avoid headlines. Agents pulled security tapes. They saw what Morrison saw. Nothing. Just passengers. Just guards. Just janitors. Janitors like Luis Herrera. Mopping. Sweeping. Invisible. One agent paused. Rewound. Watched Luis roll his cart past the lounge. Watched him exit down the service corridor. Watched him clock out. Nothing illegal. Nothing suspicious. But something about the timing didn't sit right. Still, without hard evidence, it was just speculation. And speculation doesn't close cases. The FBI filed it away. Another unsolved mystery at Miami International. The cartel's rage. The cartel, however, didn't file anything away. They burned through Miami's underworld. Questioned baggage handlers. Beat maintenance staff. Threatened low-level smugglers. But Luis had planned too well. He hadn't flaunted wealth. He hadn't told anyone. He hadn't slipped. He was a ghost. And ghosts don't answer questions. The ghost years. Vanishing point. By the second morning after the heist, Luis Herrera no longer existed. His Corolla, wiped clean with bleach, was found abandoned in a Homestead strip mall lot. Keys in the ignition. Doors unlocked. Miami police shrugged. Another junk car left behind by someone skipping town. But that car was more than junk. It was the last official trace of a man who had just humiliated a cartel and the US government in one move. From there, the trail went cold. Key West ghost. For 3 nights, Luis hid in Key West, blending into the forgotten corners of the tourist town. He paid cash for his motel room, slipped out at odd hours, and lived on vending machine snacks to avoid drawing attention at restaurants. Locals barely noticed him. A short, wiry man with tired eyes was just another face among drifters, fishermen, and washed-out dreamers. Key West was full of ghosts already. Luis was just one more. But he couldn't stay forever. The cartel's reach was long and Florida was too close. Some say he boarded a fishing boat, paying a smuggler to take him across the Straits of Florida toward Cuba. Others believe he slipped onto a cargo ship bound for Honduras, blending in with undocumented workers. A few FBI agents had a darker theory, that he never made it out alive, and his body lies at the bottom of the ocean. What's certain is this. By the end of April 2021, Luis Herrera had vanished so completely that not even the cartel's hammer could track him. The cartel bleeds. The disappearance humiliated the cartel. Money was supposed to be sacred, say, untouchable. For a janitor, a nobody, to walk away with $4 million was an insult. Worse, it was a precedent. If one man could do it, others might try. So the hunt became relentless. Cartel enforcers stormed Miami's Honduran immigrant communities, shaking down friends, cousins, neighbors. People who barely knew Luis were interrogated. Rumors spread that the cartel even killed 2 innocent men simply because they shared his last name. Fear spread like wildfire. Nobody dared even say Luis's name. He was El Fantasma, now. The ghost. The FBI puzzle. Meanwhile, the FBI quietly opened a file. Case #MI2147, Herrera Luis. On paper, it was simple. A janitor and unsolved theft, cartel money gone. But the agents couldn't agree on what had really happened. Some argued Luis was a genius who pulled off the perfect inside job. Others suspected he had accomplices. Maybe corrupt airport staff, maybe even US law enforcement. A darker theory suggested Luis had cut a deal with federal agents in exchange for protection, trading cartel intel for a new identity. But no evidence surfaced. No bank deposits. No flashy spending. No sightings abroad. Luis Herrera, a man who had lived paycheck to paycheck his entire life, had stolen millions, and simply evaporated. Legends in Honduras. Back in Honduras, the story grew even larger. Whispers reached Tegucigalpa that one of their own had beaten the cartels at their own game. In bars, men raised glasses to the janitor who stole millions. Mothers told their children that even the invisible could change fate. His daughter Maria, now 16, heard classmates joke about her father being El Fantasma. His son Carlos told friends his dad was probably living rich on a beach somewhere. But the truth was harder. Luis had written letters before the heist, giving no details but begging his children to study, to fight for better lives, to never follow his path. Those letters were delivered weeks later. By then, the man himself was already a ghost. The unanswered questions. Over the next 3 years, investigators across borders tried to answer the same riddles. Where did he go? No passport use. No digital footprint. No paper trail. Did he spend the money? No large purchases linked to him or his family. Not a single bill traced. Did the cartel find him? If they had, his death would have been a message. But there was silence. The mystery only deepened. Every year that passed without answers turned Luis Herrera from a fugitive into folklore. Theories of the ghost. The Caribbean theory. Many believe Luis escaped to the Caribbean. With $4 million, he could buy a new life in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, or Jamaica, where cash economies thrive and identities can be buried under new names. The homeland theory. Others insist he returned quietly to Honduras, hiding in remote villages where cartel eyes rarely reach. To them, Luis wasn't a fugitive, he was a hero who brought cartel money back to his people. The informant theory. The FBI never confirmed it, but some insiders whisper that Luis was taken into witness protection. That his stolen millions were seized, but in exchange he bought safety and a clean slate. If true, Luis Herrera might be living in plain sight right now. A new face, a new job somewhere in Middle America. The ocean theory. The darkest theory. That Luis never escaped. That the cartel found him quickly, silenced him, and dumped him in the ocean. The $4 million simply absorbed back into their empire. But no theory has ever been proven. A perfect vanish. Invisibility had always been Luis Herrera's curse. Nobody noticed him when he mopped floors. Nobody remembered his face when he walked past. On April 11, 2021, he turned that curse into his greatest weapon. He became invisible by choice. A janitor who walked away with $4 million. A ghost who has never been found. Legacy and myth. The shockwaves. By summer of 2021, whispers of the Miami airport heist had spread far beyond Florida. Cartels across Latin America reviewed their operations, terrified by the precedent. If a single janitor could vanish with millions, who else might try? Trust tightened. Security hardened. Guards doubled. Loyalty tests became brutal. Airports worldwide also felt the tremor. Custodial staff, long treated as invisible, suddenly became suspects. New policies required random bag checks, security escorts for cleaners, and upgraded surveillance in service tunnels once deemed low risk. Luis Herrera had changed airport security protocols without ever meaning to. The irony was brutal. A janitor, ignored for years, had forced both billion-dollar cartels and billion-dollar airports to take him seriously only after he disappeared. Cartel whisper. Inside the underworld, Luis became a ghost story told in hushed tones. Cartel bosses used his name as a warning, don't get lazy. Don't let an invisible man rob you like Herrera did. Enforcers joked nervously about mops and bleach whenever cash changed hands. Even hardened killers admitted a grudging respect. After all, Luis had done what few dared, not only steal from a cartel but get away with it. Yet behind the whispers lay fear. Cartels thrived on control, on the certainty that betrayal was punished. Luis Herrera's unsolved theft was a crack in that image. And cracks spread. The FBI's cold file. By 2022, the FBI officially labeled the case inactive. Not solved. Not closed. Just cold. The file sits in a cabinet with thousands of others. A few agents still mention it over coffee, shaking their heads. How did a man with no training, no weapons, and no allies walk out of one of the most secure airports in America with $4 million? The answer is as simple as it is chilling. Because nobody was looking at him. The family he left behind. Back in Honduras, Luis's children carried his shadow. Maria, now 18, won a scholarship to study engineering. She tells classmates her father worked himself to the bone for her future. She never mentions the other story, the ghost story. Carlos, now 15, still plays soccer on dirt fields. Sometimes when he scores, friends chant El Fantasma, half in jest, half in awe. Their father's money never reached them directly. But his sacrifice, his gamble, gave them a legacy of possibility. He showed them that even the invisible could rewrite fate. Hero or villain? So who was Luis Herrera? A thief? A deserter? A desperate father? To the cartel he was a traitor who embarrassed their empire. To the FBI he was a mystery file stamped unsolved. To his children he was simply Papa, the man who loved them enough to risk everything. And to the world he became something else entirely, a legend, the myth of El Fantasma. 3 years on, no sighting has ever been confirmed. Some say he lives quietly in the Caribbean, sipping coffee on a porch as waves crash below. Others swear he returned to Honduras, hiding in plain sight among his people. A few believe he's dead, buried in a cartel grave no one will ever find. But the truth doesn't matter anymore. Because Luis Herrera has become what all legends become, larger than life. He's El Fantasma, the janitor who stole $4 million from a cartel and disappeared forever. Closing note. Luis Herrera proved something profound. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't violence, money, or status. It's invisibility. A man the world ignored walked into history by reminding us all. It's not the generals, the CEOs, or the cartel bosses who change the story. Sometimes it's the janitor. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next unbelievable true crime documentary. And tell me in the comments, do you think Luis Herrera survived, or did the cartel finally catch up to him?